aegis to becoming, a worker in a dirty factory. And we have promotional uses of printed images helping produce mass markets and a new visual culture, as evidenced by this artifact. You are to consider and understand that the Industrial Revolution was a time of significant change in the proliferation of printed ephemera. Using the Daily Chronicle as your example, know about the tools and processes, typefaces, stakeholders, and audiences. How did the labor and skills of print shop workers change during this time? How are such changes reflected in the quality of printing? So to begin with in this chapter, really important is the industrial innovation, right? It's the whole industry completely changes based on the Watt steam engine. We have steam power. We get the steam-powered cylinder press by Friedrich Koenig in Germany. And Gutenberg's press had been used exclusively for 400 years. It could print 240 pages an hour, the Gutenberg press. This machine could print 1,100 pages an hour. So production just soared. We now have machines to make paper instead of making paper by hand. And Otmar Morgenthaler invents the Linotype machine so that the type doesn't even need to be set by hand anymore. That a machine with a keyboard, kind of like a computer, could create the lines of type, and that's why it's called Linotype. And the pantograph machine allowed people to scale up designs from the past into larger designs while they maintained their integrity. So the pantograph was another really important machine, and combining that with a wood router meant that designs could be scaled up. There could be letter forms that were like 2 to 8 feet tall. And so we see an explosion of typographic designs that are very creative, very crazy, very competing for attention in public space. And some of those are these: large type, fat face, Egyptian or slab serif, and sans serif. Sans serif already existed in ancient Greek text or ancient Greek letter forms, and William Casson IV created a book of type specimens and put this in at the back, and it was kind of discovered unexpectedly later in time and became, the face of typographic communication today, right? So much of our world is done in sans serif. So by looking at this artifact, you should, be able to understand the methods of production, that, it's kind of ink blotty, which somebody pointed out in class that, because it's being made very quickly from low quality materials, they place our ink quickly, they're used a lot, so they have wear and tear on them. There's a lot of different typefaces. There's not really that much of a visual hierarchy other than the grid line, and a lot of competing typefaces. And there is still a hierarchy through competing typefaces. And it's evident, within it holds a story about its means of production, its system of production. If you just look at it and you think about, why does it look that way? Well, it looks that way because of the technology that it was made to use it. And I ended that chapter talking about, the low quality working life of workers in the printing field is this thing. We go through a huge change in how printers work, right? It becomes a really low quality and highly dangerous job. People work, 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, very low pay, lots of accidents, and that's the end of the Industrial Revolution. We have one more chapter to go. We're going to make it. Okay? Are you with me? All right. So the last chapter, which is one I think where, in general, students start to connect more with this class because it becomes more easy or like more within your experience. So we have Art Defoe, or the Belle Époque, in 1850 to 1900. And we see the subject matter of visual communication change to the personal, sexual liberation, feminism, youth revolution, religion, mythology, psychology, narcotics, and the concept of mass manufactured art, enabling a widespread questioning of values, combination of commerce and entertainment called conspicuous consumption. Here's your image. It is Jules Charet's image. It's the prompt is to consider and understand as graphic arts began to permeate every aspect of daily life through industrialization, the reproducibility and affordability of posters enabled them to go beyond the streets into people's homes. How did such changes raise issues of originality and authenticity, as talked about by Walter Benjamin? How was the presentation of the new woman defined by the male gaze in the work of poster artists such as Jules Charest? How did illustration practices in the process of lithography combine to contribute to such poster work? So I mentioned that ukiyo-e prints coming out of Japan were very influential to the new Art Nouveau artists. Sigmund Bing had a gallery in Paris. He called it Art Nouveau, and he showed these Japanese prints. And then the name Art Nouveau took hold for a group of artists working at this time. And they were working, so this Japanese print is a woodcut, but the Art Nouveau artists predominantly used lithography. So a kind of new technology that was created, I think, in 1796. It's on my next slide, but I think in 1796. Walter Benjamin writes, lithography enabled graphic art to illustrate everyday life, and it began to keep pace with printing. So here's an example, and I showed you a video of the process of lithography, and it was invented by Alois Sennenfelder in 1796, and it has its own inherent properties that create visual interest. One, most importantly, is that image and text can be combined on one surface, and it frees the maker up from the strict grid of metal type, right? So we get Jules Charest lithograph poster of dancer Louis Fuller, and it's in France, 1893. Charest considered the father of the modern poster. Flat perspective and strong colors, just like the ukiyo-e. His approach was that color was fundamental. He perfected separation and registration techniques. You can see an asymmetrical composition with still a centered stress for the female figure. He worked with very large stones, 7 or 8 feet, which he said was the ideal height of a woman. People called him the father of women's liberation because he did introduce a new role for women in the late Victorian era. And, his subject matter was happy, self-assured women enjoying life to the fullest, wearing low-cut dresses, dancing, drinking wine, and even smoking. And it's very typical of Art Nouveau, this style, the curviness, the flowing lines of color. And Walter Benjamin says, he talks about the aura and authenticity. And it's really important here because lithography allows people, regular people, to have beautiful art in their homes. And so Walter Benjamin offers you a critical way to think about what is lost, what is gained, when we lose the aura of an original, but we gain accessibility to the beauty, and the beauty improves people's lives. So that's something really important to think about Walter Benjamin's work. He said, technical reproduction can put the copy of the original in situations which would be out of reach for the original. And I spent quite a bit of time talking about Walter Benjamin's ideas. And so I skipped a little bit on the male gaze because we were running out of time in the last class. I want to spend a couple minutes talking about it. It's super important to understand this, and then I'm going to end. It kind of begins with Jean-Paul Sartre writing from his book Being in Nothingness, where he says the act of gazing at another human being creates a subjective power difference, which is felt by the gazer and the gaze, because the person being gazed is perceived as an object. It's really important because at this time, all of the images of women are through the vision of men. And I think it's a really important thing to consider because it has a long-lasting and somewhat very harmful legacy and presence today. So Laura Mulvey, who is a British feminist film theorist, kind of adds more to the story, and she talks about sexual inequality. The asymmetry of social and political power between men and women is a controlling social force. And she writes specifically about film, so she says in the cinematic representation, that the male gaze, the aesthetic pleasure of the male viewer, is a social construct derived from the ideologies and discourses of patriarchy. And then Bell Hooks, who is an American author, professor, feminist, and social activist, adds more to that and talks about an oppositional gaze. So I just want to lay that out for you. These are really important concept is you go into the design field where you're representing other people other than yourself, how you do that carefully. And I did show you these slides, and they're in the slide set, on what Jan Thomas particularly wrote about the role of women in Art Nouveau. And so she critiques people like Jules Charest specifically, and that is in contrast. You know, the way that women were portrayed in the work of the Art Nouveau artists is in contrast, like some of the really important themes women were doing at that time for equal rights and civil rights. That's your side. There's one more thing I have to say. You can do it. I believe in you. Good luck, and make me proud.